English, a daily 30-minute program from the Voice of America. I'm Dan Friedel.
And I'm Katie Weaver. This program is aimed at English learners. So we speak slowly, and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English. Coming up on the show, reports from Brian Lynn and Gregory Stockel. Jill Robbins brings us this week's Ask a Teacher. And we close the show with an American story, The Lady in Black by Eleanor H. Porter. But first,
a new United Nations report says 1/5 of the world's migrating animals are at risk of disappearing. Animals that migrate move from one area to another at different times of the year. The report, called State of the World's Migratory Species, was released February 12th. It blames population drops on environmental changes linked to human activities. The threats the animals face include habitat loss, illegal hunting and fishing, pollution, and climate change. Many kinds of migratory animals, including songbirds, sea turtles, whales, sharks, and others, move to different environments as the seasons change. The UN report says about 44% of migratory species around the world are decreasing in population. In addition, about 1 in 5 of 1,200 species watched by the UN are at risk of becoming extinct or completely disappearing. Kelly Malsh was the lead writer of the report. She told the Associated Press, "These are species that move around the globe. They move to feed and breed and also need stopover sites along the way." Malsh said any habitat loss or other threats during their trip can make animal populations fall. Migration is essential for some species. If you cut the migration, you're going to kill the species, said Stuart Pym. He is an ecologist at Duke University in North Carolina who was not part of the study. The researchers examined existing data, including information from the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List. The list identifies wildlife across the world currently facing threats. The report was presented at a meeting of the UN's Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. Attendees of the gathering are examining proposals for conservation measures. They are also working to identify new species of concern. Susan Lieberman is Vice President for International Policy at the nonprofit Wildlife Conservation Society. She told the AP, "One country alone cannot save any of these species." Lieberman noted that 8 South American governments at the meeting are expected to propose the addition of 2 threatened catfish to the UN's list of species of concern. The catfish live in the Amazon River Basin, the world's largest freshwater system. If the habitat there can be saved, the catfish will do well, Lieberman said. It's about protecting the habitat. She added, the report found habitat loss affected up to 75% of the species studied. The report said this shows a big need for more connectivity between separated ecosystems. It urges governments to take steps to avoid harming habitats and migration paths when building dams, pipelines, or wind power equipment. We need to look at the top levels of government decision-making, said Amy Frankel. She is Executive Secretary of the UN Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species. Frankel told Reuters news agency the goal is to consider the best ways animals and humans can have their needs met. We all need to survive, Frankel added. She noted the problems migratory animals face are also linked to temperature changes across the planet. These changes, Frankel added, hurt the timing of migrations, cause heat stress, and drive increasingly destructive weather-related events. She said the changes that had been already predicted some years ago are now happening. I'm Brian Lynn.
A group of South Korean rappers in their 80s has become popular in their hometown and beyond. The group raps about farm life and bringing energy to a quiet rural area threatened by shrinking population. The group is called Sunni and the Seven Princesses. They have become famous in their local area since starting out at a community center last August in Chilgo County. The area is southeast of the capital, Seoul. It feels like I'm getting younger, even if I'm old. I'm excited, said 81-year-old Park Jom-sun of a recent performance at a school. She is the leader of the group and known as Sunni. At first, they had a small fan group of 150 people. But the group's popularity spread. They have been asked to perform in nearby towns and to appear on TV shows. Their videos have gained more than 77,000 views on YouTube. Their success comes as South Korea is about to become a super aging country as early as next year. 1/5 of the country's population is over the age of 65. Rural areas like Chilgo are shrinking as young people move away to the cities and fewer of them have children. Park said, "In the past, it felt like I'm living in a really busy town, but now it's not good. There are no people here anymore." Park said she and the group feel like they are reliving their youth when they perform in clothes like funny hats and baggy pants and wear metal jewelry. Their songs tell about rural life with lines like picking chili from a chili farm, picking watermelon from a watermelon farm, so happy to be back home. Watermelon and chili are popular crops in the area. The group members have known each other since they were young. They could not receive an education during the years after the Korean War. In 2016, they all took an adult education class to learn how to read and write the Korean alphabet, Hangul. Last year, Park came across a rap performance on the internet, and the group decided to learn rap from their Hangul teacher. They wanted to form a senior group, rapping about rural life. Their first performance came at a school play at the community center where they met for their Hangul classes. Inspired by the success of Suni and the Seven Princesses, 4 other rap groups of older South Koreans have appeared in Chilgo. Some formed with the idea of keeping their minds strong and not feel alone. Park's proud 27-year-old granddaughter, Kong Hae-yoon, believes her grandmother is the most famous person of Chilgo. She said, "I thought only celebrities became popular on social media, but my grandmother is there now." I'm Gregory Stockel.
Ask a Teacher. This week we answer a question that relates not just to language, but also politeness and foreign policy. It comes from Hai in Vietnam. He writes, "I would highly appreciate it if you could let me know the meaning of this phrase. It sure as heck ain't good." Hai, Vietnam. Dear Hai, thank you for writing to us and providing a link to the place where you read the sentence. The quote that you asked about is from a January 31st press conference at the White House. The press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, invited spokesman John Kirby to answer questions from reporters. One reporter said the European Union had recently offered to give Ukraine only half of what it had been promised. The reporter asked, "How bad is all this for the Ukrainian forces? And do you see an impact on the battlefield already?" Kirby gave this answer, "It sure as heck ain't good, and this is why we need the supplemental funding." There are 3 things an English learner needs to know to understand Kirby's answer. The first one has to do with the language that Kirby used. Heck is in the class of words called euphemisms. They are words or expressions people use instead of saying something that might be offensive or could sound uneducated. Heck is a euphemism for the word hell. Kirby, like most government officials, is trying to use more formal language, but he also wants to bring attention to the serious nature of the problem. So he uses heck instead of hell, a word that is much stronger. Hell in many religions is a very unpleasant place where bad people go. The second thing learners need to know is the short form ain't. The contraction ain't is usually a short form of am not, but it can also mean is not or are not, as well as have not or has not. In our example, Kirby could have said, "It is not good." Like most informal contractions, we must tell you it is best to avoid ain't in all writing for school or work and in speech. For more information, see our everyday grammar on this subject, this ain't it, and other short forms. Kirby said, "It sure as heck ain't good," and this is why we need the supplemental funding. The United States Congress must approve all spending by the U.S. government. A supplemental funding request can be made to ask Congress to approve additional spending that has not been provided for in earlier spending legislation. I hope this helps you understand Kirby's comments, Hi. What question do you have about American English? Send us an email at learningenglish@voanews.com. And that's Ask a Teacher. I'm Jill Robbins.
And now, an American story. Faith Lapidus reads The Lady in Black by Eleanor H. Porter.
The house was very still. In the little room over the porch, the lady in black sat alone. Near her, a child's white dress lay across a chair. On the floor at her feet lay a tiny pair of shoes. A doll hung over a chair, and a toy soldier occupied the little stand by the bed. And everywhere was silence. The strange silence that comes only to a room where the clock has stopped ticking. The clock stood on the shelf near the end of the bed. The lady in black looked at it. She remembered the wave of anger that had come over her when she had reached out her hand and silenced the clock that night 3 months before. It had been silent ever since, and it should remain silent, too. Of what possible use were the hours it would tick away now? As if anything mattered, with little Kathleen lying out there white and still under the black earth. "Mother!" The lady in black moved restlessly and looked toward the closed door. Behind it, she knew, was a little boy with wide blue eyes who wanted her. But she wished he would not call her by that name. It only reminded her of those other little lips, silent now. "Mother!" The voice was more demanding. The lady in black did not answer. He might go away, she thought, if she did not answer. There was a short silence, and then the door opened slowly. "Peek!" It was a cry of joyful discovery, but it was followed almost immediately by silence. The unsmiling woman did not invite him to come near. The boy was unsteady at his first step. He paused, then spoke carefully. "I's here?" It was maybe the worst thing he could have said. To the lady in black, it was a yet more painful reminder of that other one who was not there. She gave a sharp cry and covered her face with her hands. "Bobby! Bobby!" she cried out in a release of unreasoning sadness. "Go away! Go away! I want to be alone! Alone!" All the brightness fled from the boy's face. His eyes showed a feeling of deep hurt. He waited, but she did not move. Then, with a half-quieted cry, he left the room. Long minutes afterward, the lady in black raised her head and saw him through the window. He was in the yard with his father, playing under the apple tree. Playing! The lady in black looked at them with serious eyes, and her mouth hardened at the corners. Bobby had someone to play with him, someone to love him and care for him, while out there on the hillside, Kathleen was alone, all alone. With a little cry, the lady in black sprang to her feet and hurried into her own room. Her hands shook as she pinned on her hat and covered herself with her black veil. But her step was firm as she walked downstairs and out through the hall. The man under the apple tree rose hurriedly and came forward. "Helen, dearest, not again today," he begged. "Darling, it can't do any good." "But she's alone, all alone. You don't seem to think. No one thinks. No one knows how I feel. You don't understand. If you did, you'd come with me. You wouldn't ask me to stay here," choked the woman. "I have been with you, dear," said the man gently. "I've been with you today and every day, almost since she left us. But it can't do any good, this continuous mourning over her grave. It only makes more sadness for you, for me, and for Bobby. Bobby is here, you know, dear." No, don't say it," cried the woman wildly. "You don't understand. You don't understand." And she turned and hurried away, followed by the worried eyes of the man and the sad eyes of the boy. It was not a long walk to the burial place. The lady in black knew the way, yet she stumbled and reached out blindly. She fell before a little stone marked Kathleen. Near her, a gray-haired woman, with her hands full of pink and white roses, watched her sympathetically. The gray-haired woman paused and opened her lips as if she would speak. Then she turned slowly and began to arrange her flowers on a grave nearby. The lady in black raised her head. For a time she watched in silence. Then she threw back her veil and spoke. "You care too," she said softly. "You understand. I've seen you here before, I'm sure. And was yours a little girl?" The gray-haired woman shook her head. "No, dearie, it's a little boy. Or he was a little boy 40 years ago." 40 years? So long. How could you have lived 40 years without him? Again the little woman shook her head. "One has to sometimes, dearie. But this little boy wasn't mine." "But you care. You understand. I've seen you here so often before." "Yes. You see, there's no one else to care. But there was once, and I'm caring now for her sake." "For her?" "His mother." "Oh." It was a tender little cry, full of quick sympathy. The eyes of the lady in black were on the stone marked Kathleen. "It ain't as if I didn't know how she'd feel," said the gray-haired woman. "You see, I was nurse to the boy when it happened, and for years afterward I worked in the family, so I know. I saw the whole thing from the beginning, from the very day when the little boy here met with the accident." "Accident?" It was a cry of concern and sympathy from Kathleen's mother. "Yes, it was a runaway, and he didn't live 2 days." I know, choked the lady in black. Yet she was not thinking of the boy and the runaway horse accident. "Things stopped then for my mistress, and that was the beginning of the end. She had a husband and a daughter, but they didn't seem to be important, not either of them. Nothing seemed important except this little grave out here. She came and spent hours over it, bringing flowers and talking to it. The lady in black raised her head suddenly and quickly looked into the woman's face. The woman went on speaking. The house got sadder and sadder. She didn't seem to mind. She seemed to want it so. She shut out the sunshine and put away many of the pictures. She sat only in the boy's room, and there everything was just as it was when he left it. She wouldn't let a thing be touched. I wondered afterward that she didn't see where it was all leading to, but she didn't. Leading to? The voice shook. Yeah, I wondered she didn't see she was losing 'em, that husband and daughter, but she didn't see it. The lady in black sat very still. Even the birds seemed to have stopped their singing. Then the gray-haired woman spoke. So, you see, that's why I come and put flowers here. It's for her. There's no one else now to care, she sighed, rising to her feet. But you haven't told yet what happened, said the lady in black softly. Oh, I don't know myself, really. I know the man went away. He got something to do traveling, so he wasn't home much. When he did come, he looked sick and bad. He come less and less, and he died. But that was after she died. He's buried over there beside her and the boy. The girl, well, nobody knows where the girl is. Girls like flowers and sunshine and laughter and young people, you know. And she didn't get any of them at home. So she went where she did get 'em, I suppose. There, and if I haven't gone and tired you all out with my talking, said the little gray-haired woman regretfully. No, I was glad to hear it, said the lady in black, rising unsteadily to her feet. Her face had grown white, and her eyes showed a sudden fear. But I must go now. Thank you. And she turned and hurried away. The house was very still when the lady in black reached home. She shivered at its silence. She hurried up the stairs, almost with guilt. In her own room, she pulled at the dark veil that covered her face. She was crying now, a choking little cry with broken words running through it. She was still crying as she removed her black dress. Long minutes later, the lady, in black no longer, moved slowly down the stairway. Her eyes showed traces of tears, but her lips were bravely curved in a smile. She wore a white dress and a single white rose in her hair. Behind her, in the little room over the porch, a tiny clock ticked loudly on its shelf near the end of the bed. There came a sound of running feet in the hall below. Then, "Mother! It's Mother! Come back!" shouted a happy voice. And with a little sobbing cry, Bobby's mother opened her arms to her son.
And that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Katie Weaver.
And I'm Dan Friedel. Thanks for listening. Please join us again tomorrow for another Learning English podcast from the Voice of America. Learning English, a daily 30-minute program from the Voice of America. I'm Dan Friedel.
And I'm Katie Weaver. This program is aimed at English learners. So we speak slowly, and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English.
Today on the program, we have reports about the Alaska pox virus, an effort to move 21 rhinos in Kenya, tips for international students who plan to take the SAT or ACT, and a discussion about words and phrases created by American presidents. Mario Ritter Jr. is up first with this story.
Health officials in the American state of Alaska have known for 9 years about a virus causing rare, mild illness. But a recent case that resulted in a man's death has brought new attention to what is being called the Alaska pox virus. Here's some background on the virus. Alaska pox belongs to the family of orthopox viruses that can infect animals and humans. These viruses usually cause lesions or pox on the skin. Some are more dangerous than others. Smallpox is the best-known member of the orthopox virus family. Others include camelpox, cowpox, horsepox, and mpox, formerly known as monkeypox. Alaska pox was discovered in 2015 in a woman who lived near Fairbanks, Alaska. It mainly has been found in small mammals, but house animals, such as dogs and cats, can carry the virus, health officials say. 7 people in Alaska have become infected with it in the last 9 years. People with Alaska pox have developed 1 or more bumps on the skin. They also experience joint or muscle pain and swollen parts of the body called lymph nodes. Officials believe Alaska pox spreads through contact with infected animals. Alaska health officials say there have been 7 people infected with Alaska pox since the virus was discovered. But the latest case represents the first time someone is known to have died from it. The older man lived on the Kenai Peninsula. He was being treated for cancer and had a suppressed immune system because of the drugs. Health officials believe that Alaska pox is rare. That said, wildlife can carry infection risks and should not be kept at home. The best way to keep pets and family members safe is to keep a safe distance and wash your hands after being outdoors. I'm Mario Ritter Jr.
Conservationists in Kenya are celebrating the return of many rhinoceroses to an area where they have not been for many years. The successful move of 21 eastern black rhinos to a new home will give them space to reproduce and could help increase the population of the highly endangered animals. The effort was Kenya's biggest ever move of rhinos. The rhinos were taken from 3 parks that are becoming overpopulated to the private Loisaba Conservancy, a place where poachers killed all the rhinos many years ago. Moving the rhinos required 18 days. Conservationists followed the rhinos using a helicopter. They then shot them with special guns that inject tranquilizer into the animals, which weigh hundreds of kilograms. The rhinos then have to be loaded into the back of a truck. Disaster nearly struck early in the move. A tranquilized rhino fell into a small river. Officials involved with the move held the rhino's head above water with a rope to prevent it from drowning, while a drug to undo the tranquilizer took effect. The animal was then released. Some of the rhinos were taken from Nairobi National Park. They had to travel 300 kilometers. Loisaba Conservancy said it has put aside around 25,000 hectares for the new arrivals, which are a mix of males and females. Kenya has had some success in bringing back black rhinos. The population fell from around 20,000 in the 1970s to below 300 in the 1980s because of poaching, conservationists say. The loss increased fears that the animals might disappear from the country. Kenya now has around 1,000 black rhinos, the third biggest population after South Africa and Namibia. There are just over 6,400 wild black rhinos left in the world. All of them are in Africa, the organization Save the Rhino International said. Tom Sylvester is the chief executive officer of Loisaba Conservancy. He said Kenya's plan is to get its black rhino numbers to 2,000 over the next 10 years. Once we have 2,000 individuals, we will have established a population that will give us hope that we have brought them back from extinction, he said. Kenyan officials say they have moved more than 150 rhinos in the last 10 years. But not all moves have succeeded. One attempt to move 11 rhinos in 2018 ended with all of the animals dying. An investigation found 10 of the rhinos died from stress, a lack of water, and food. Since then, new guidelines have been created for the capture and moving of rhinos in Kenya. I'm Gregory Stockel.
Several top U.S. universities say they will require standardized tests such as the SAT and ACT from applicants again. Some of them went test optional during the pandemic. The schools include Dartmouth College, Georgetown University, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Dartmouth College in New Hampshire said students from other countries will need to submit results from those tests or an equivalent standardized national exam. Alan Coe is the founder of Cardinal Education, a company that helps students with college preparation, including applications. He said Dartmouth's announcement only made official what had been de facto true. He noted that between 80 and 90% of students admitted to top universities sent test scores, even when they were not required. Coe said students who attend international schools, that use the A-level tests from Great Britain may not need to take the SAT or ACT, since those tests are so well known. The tests from India may be useful too. However, students coming from other countries should take the ACT or SAT.
Andrew Taylor is a vice president at the nonprofit organization that runs the ACT. He said the tests are important for international students because they permit American schools to compare students, even if they come from different educational systems. In an email message to VOA, a representative from the College Board, which runs the SAT, said the test plays an important role in helping international students be seen by colleges and universities. Test scores can confirm a student's grades or even demonstrate their strengths beyond what their high school grades may show. So if you are an international student planning to apply to college in the U.S., what should you know about the tests? The SAT has two parts, reading and math. Students can earn a top score of 800 for each part, making 1,600 a perfect score. The SAT is an adaptive test, which means the questions will change based on a student's answer to the previous question. As a result, the SAT takes less time for most students than the ACT. The ACT is the same for every student who takes the test on the same day. The ACT has 4 parts: math, science, English, and reading. The top ACT score is 36. Both tests are now available to be taken with a computer at international testing centers. For the most part, CO advises international students to take the ACT because it is much easier to get a perfect ACT score than a perfect SAT score. Based on how the final ACT score is calculated, CO said there are more ways to get to the perfect score of 36. For English learners, CO has this advice.
So I'd say if your English is really strong all around, ACT could be great for foreigners. But I think for the average foreigner where English might be a little bit of a liability and math might be a little bit stronger, then the SAT may be a better test.
Taylor of the ACT added that the ACT has a science section, so for students who may not be strong in science, the SAT could be a better choice. Both Co and Taylor say students should take practice tests from both the ACT and SAT to decide which may be better for them. You can find more information online, such as testing dates and locations of test centers, at the SAT and ACT websites. Co and Taylor suggest that international students take the tests at least 1 year before finishing high school. If there is room for improvement, Co said, students can practice and take it again 6 months later. Taylor reminded students that most schools will consider a super score, which is the best score from each test category.
So there is no doubt that students do better if they take more than one test. So if they're in a position to be able to take more than one test, we would always recommend that. And give yourself the time to do some additional learning between tests. So, think about where you struggled, think about where you can be ready, and go from there.
Arkar Chen of Myanmar took the SAT in 2016, 1 year after he finished high school. He studied for the test but was still surprised at how difficult the reading part was.
I would say at 80% of the time, I have no idea what it's asking. But the thing with SAT is that when you practice enough, you kind of see a pattern and you kind of know what answer the test maker are looking for.
In addition, Chen said students need to solve math problems quickly because each question has a limited time. There's no way you could do well without a lot of practice, he said. Chen said the concept of critical thinking was the biggest difference between American tests such as the SAT and the tests he saw growing up in Myanmar. The SAT, he said, tests a lot on your critical thinking skills, so I think that's why it can feel hard.
Taylor of ACT says the test is part of the toolbox for colleges to decide about a student's ability to do well in school. More and more, Taylor said, higher ed is worried about graduation, not just about admission. So we need to give not only the higher education institution as much data as we can about the student. We also need to give the student as much data as we can about themselves. Coe observes that standardized tests favor a well-rounded student. So students who spend a lot of time studying math and engineering would be smart to spend time on reading and discussing books in English before taking the test. The parents of many international students are surprised to learn, as Coe said, Asian STEM-focused students are penalized the heaviest by American admissions officers for being very strong in math, but weak on reading. I'm Gina Bennett.
And I'm Dan Friedel.
And now, words and their stories from VOA Learning English. The third Monday of February is known as President's Day in the United States. So for today's words and their stories, we look at some of the famous and not so famous presidential words and their stories in history. From Teddy Roosevelt's lunatic fringe to Joe Biden's malarkey, the words and phrases said by U.S. presidents are often as unique as the American experience. We're really creating our own institutions through language, said Paul Dixon. He is the writer of Words from the White House, words and phrases coined or popularized by America's presidents. If you coin a word or phrase, you create it. Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, is said to have created more than 100 words. One of those words is authentication, the act of proving or showing something to be true. Another word from Jefferson is Anglomania. It means to have extreme affection for all things English. The ending mania means to be crazy about something. Abraham Lincoln, the country's 16th president, is known for making powerful speeches during the Civil War. One of his best-known phrases, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," is drawn from the Bible. Historians note that Teddy Roosevelt, the 26th president, was the first president to use media to connect with the public. And he added several memorable words and phrases to American English. Dixon says, Teddy Roosevelt creates this huge body of slang. The words include pack rat, loose cannon, lunatic fringe, and bully pulpit, among many others. A pack rat is someone who collects things that they do not need. A loose cannon describes a dangerous and uncontrollable person. Lunatic fringe describes people whose opinions are extreme and different from many others. And a bully pulpit is an important position, such as the presidency, that provides a chance to instruct, lead, or inspire others. In addition to slang, some presidents created slogans. A slogan is a short phrase used in advertising or political campaigns to get attention. America First came from Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president, in 1915, and not Donald Trump, the 45th. The 29th president, Warren Harding, gets credit for coming up with the term Founding Fathers. This describes the creators of the U.S. Constitution. Before Calvin Coolidge, the 30th president, no political campaigner had ever called himself a law and order candidate. This means they support police efforts and enforcement of laws. The 33rd president, Harry Truman, came up with the phrase, "Do nothing Congress." He is also famous for saying, "If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen." Sometimes presidents changed names to better describe their purpose. Dixon says it was Franklin D. Roosevelt who changed the name of the report to Congress to the State of the Union. However, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd president, brought criticism when he said, "Well, it's pretty iffy as to where the Supreme Court stands on this." Iffy is another way of saying something is uncertain or unknown. His critics felt that the American president should use proper English. In 1961, Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th president, was praised for using the term military-industrial complex to warn against the powerful alliance of the military, government, and private corporations. But then he was criticized for using the word finalize in a speech. By adding IZE, eyes, he turned the word final into a verb. Major papers at the time wrote that it was not proper English and called the word meaningless. Dixon says necessity is the reason presidents continue to create new words. There was a solid majority from Richard Nixon, the 37th president, and Barack Obama, the 44th president, used shovel-ready to describe public work projects that were ready to start immediately. When Joe Biden, the 46th president, ran for the White House in 2019, his campaign slogan was "No Malarkey." Malarkey is believed to be an expression often used by Irish Americans to describe insincere or meaningless talk. And that, my friends, is no malarkey. I hope you enjoyed this special presidential Words and Their Stories. Until next time, I'm Anna Mateo.
I'm Dan Friedel, and you're listening to the Learning English podcast. We just heard Anna Mateo tell us about the words and phrases used by American presidents. Anna, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Anna, can you tell our listeners why we are talking about presidents today?
Sure. In the U.S., we are celebrating President's Day on Monday. It is the third Monday in February.
Anna, I suppose the presidents have a lot to say about the English language, especially American English. That is because almost everything they say is written down.
That's right, Dan. As I mentioned, Thomas Jefferson, the third president, is thought to have created more than 100 words. And one historian said Teddy Roosevelt was known for putting informal words, known as slang, into the public record.
Anna, I know he created one saying people use all the time, pack rat. I'm trying to avoid being a pack rat. I like to hold on to things from a long time ago, even if I don't use them anymore.
Dan, I think you should think twice about everything you decide to save.
I know. My wife says the same thing. But I like being able to go back and look at old newspaper articles I wrote in the 1990s. Anna, I know you wanted to talk about how some presidents change words by adding endings to them. Can you explain that to our listeners and give some examples?
Sure, Dan. President Dwight Eisenhower created some terms we still use today. But he received criticism at the time for turning the word final into a verb. He used the word finalize.
Anna, are there any other presidents who did that kind of thing?
Yes, there are, Dan. I mentioned that Thomas Jefferson is credited with creating about 100 new words. Well, he also liked adding the ending mania to something. For example, at the time of his presidency, the U.S. may have declared its independence from Great Britain, but some people still were centered on the way of life in England.
So, what did he call that way of thinking?
He added mania to the end of the word Anglo and created the term Anglomania. People have added mania to the end of words for a long time now.
Anna, I can think of some other words that have mania at the end, like egomania or pyromania or even WrestleMania. I did not know Jefferson was responsible.
Well, it turns out he was.
He was responsible for the Declaration of Independence and many, many words. Go Thomas Jefferson. Anna, I think that realization about finalizes this conversation, don't you think?
Yep, I think we have gotten all we can out of this bully pulpit.
Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome, Dan. Talk to you soon.
And that's the Learning English podcast for today. Thank you, Anna, for that report. And thanks to my VOA colleagues for their work on today's program.
Most importantly, thank you for listening. For more, visit our website at learningenglish.voanews.com. I'm Katie Weaver.
And I'm Dan Friedel.
to Learning English, a daily 30-minute program from the Voice of America. I'm Ashley Thompson.
And I'm Dan Novak. This program is designed for English learners, so we speak a little slower, and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English. Coming up on the program, Monday is President's Day in the U.S. Ashley explains the history of the holiday and shares some interesting facts about our presidents. For the Science Report, Brian Lynn has a story on the effects of a possible collapse of ocean currents. Later, Jill Robbins and Andrew Smith present the lesson of the day. But first,
the third Monday of February is known as President's Day in the United States. For nearly 100 years, America honored its first president, George Washington, on February 22nd. That was his birthday. But the date was not a national holiday until 1968. That year, the U.S. Congress passed a measure known as the Uniform Monday Holiday Act. The measure meant that some public holidays would always fall on a Monday. Today, the country honors its first president on the third Monday in February, and not on Washington's real birthday. The holiday is now commonly called President's Day. Many say it also honors Abraham Lincoln's birthday. The nation's 16th president was born on February 12th. The federal government, however, still recognizes the holiday as Washington's birthday. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act gives workers a 3-day weekend. It also gives shops and marketers a chance to have special President's Day sales. In January of 2021, Joe Biden made history when he took the oath of office as the 46th President of the United States. At 78 years old, he became the oldest elected president. The man he beat was the previous record holder, Donald J. Trump. He took office at the age of 70 in 2017. Biden and Trump are leading candidates for the Democratic and Republican presidential nominations for the 2024 presidential race. They will likely face each other again later this year for the presidency. As the first billionaire president, Trump replaced John F. Kennedy, the 35th president, as the richest man to serve as president. Kennedy still holds the record for the youngest person to be elected president. He was 43 when he took office. Kennedy is also the youngest president to die in office. He was assassinated in 1963 in Dallas, Texas. He was 46 years old. Another presidential assassination put the youngest person in office for the president. In 1901, Theodore Roosevelt, then the vice president, became president at the age of 42. He took office after William McKinley, the 25th president, was shot and killed in Buffalo, New York. The first president to die in office, though, was William Henry Harrison. The country's 9th president only served 32 days, the shortest time of any president. Another Roosevelt holds the record for the longest time in office. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the 32nd president. He held office for 4,422 days. After his death, the 22nd Amendment was passed. It limited a person to 2 4-year terms as president. Most Americans know that the two Roosevelts were related, but they may not know exactly how they were related. Here it goes. Franklin Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, was also his fifth cousin once removed. And Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th president, was Eleanor's uncle. That makes the two presidents distant relatives. But they were not the first relatives to both serve as president. That title belongs to the Adamses. John Adams was America's second president. His son, John Quincy Adams, was elected as the nation's sixth president. The Bushes are the other father-son presidential pair. George Herbert Walker Bush was elected as the 41st president. His son, George W. Bush, was the country's 43rd president. Not everyone can run for president. The U.S. Constitution says a person must be at least 35 years old. A person must also have lived within the United States for at least 14 years. And they must be a natural-born citizen. But the meaning of natural-born citizen is not exactly clear. People read the rules in different ways. By some reasoning, the first natural-born American president was not George Washington or John Adams. It was Martin Van Buren, the eighth president. He was born in 1782, 6 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. All 7 presidents before Van Buren and William Henry Harrison, the 9th president, technically were not natural-born citizens. They were born before 1776, when the American states were still British colonies. I'm Ashley Thompson.
Of an Atlantic Ocean current system that would likely lead to worldwide climate changes. Researchers identify the ocean system as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. They say the system plays an important part in moving or circulating salt and warm water around the world. This process helps control world temperatures, affects carbon dioxide levels, and supports worldwide water flows. The AMOC system brings warm water to northern areas and carries cold water south, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, explains. The circulation also transports nutrients necessary to support many kinds of sea life. The process begins as warm and salty surface water flows northward toward Greenland in the Atlantic. Scientists created a complex climate model in an effort to simulate a possible collapse of the AMOC. The computer model was able to measure a sudden weakening of the ocean circulation, the team said in a statement. The research was led by scientists from Utrecht University in the Netherlands. A study describing their findings recently appeared in the publication Science Advances. For thousands of years, Earth's oceans have depended on the AMOC circulation system, which acts like a conveyor belt to control climate. The system is still operating but has experienced slowdowns in recent years. The driver of the conveyor belt sits off the coast of Greenland. As more ice melts here from climate change, more fresh water flows into the North Atlantic and slows the circulation, said René van Westen. He is a climate scientist and oceanographer at Utrecht University. Van Westen told the Associated Press his research on a possible AMOC collapse does suggest we are heading towards a tipping point. He added, however, that while his team found clear evidence the system is moving closer to collapse, we're not sure how much closer. In the current system, cold, deeper, and fresher water heads south past both Americas and then east past Africa. The system also pushes saltier, warmer ocean water from the Pacific and Indian Oceans past the southern tip of Africa. This water flows to and around Florida before continuing up the U.S. East Coast towards Greenland. The Dutch team simulated 2,200 years of AMOC flow. The researchers added to the model expectations for future human-caused climate change. The results predicted an abrupt AMOC collapse after 1,750 years. But the researchers noted it is difficult to provide a realistic date because the process could be influenced by many unknown circulation events. Making a prediction is also difficult because current observational records are too short to provide an exact estimation of collapse, the scientists said. The team said more physics-based measuring tools are necessary to create early warning systems. The team noted one difficult area to predict is around the tip of Africa, where it is difficult to produce realistic estimates of circulation flows. Measurements around that area have a big effect on how much the AMOC slows, the researchers said. This value is getting more negative under climate change, Van Westen said. He added that when the AMOC reaches a certain level, the change does not happen over time, but would be more cliff-like, he added. Van Westen said an AMOC collapse would mostly affect climate in Europe. The researchers say a collapse could reduce temperatures in northwestern Europe by 5 to 15 degrees Celsius. Their study predicts the change would also extend Arctic ice much farther south, raise temperatures in the southern hemisphere, and change worldwide rainfall. Some scientists warned the climate effects could cause worldwide food and water shortages. In addition, the team said the simulation predicted a possible 100-centimeter rise in European sea levels if the AMOC collapsed. Van Westen warned that once the collapse happens, the resulting climate effects are nearly impossible to change. Another member of the team, Henk Dijkstra, said staying clear of such a tipping point is necessary to avoid the devastating consequences on climate, society, and the environment. I'm Brian Lynn.
joining me, Brian.
Sure, Dan. Glad to be here.
This week's report dealt with a new warning about changing currents in the Atlantic Ocean that could one day collapse and cause climate changes around the world. What is the main cause of the changes currently affecting this major current system?
So the researchers involved in this study said the main way changes are happening is that fresh water from melting glaciers and the Greenland ice sheet is diluting saltier water in the area. This prevents water from sinking, and this limits warmer surface water from circulating effectively through the current system.
The report pointed out the researchers involved in the study think it is just a matter of time before this Atlantic current system collapses. But they also admitted the difficulties involved with trying to make exact predictions, right?
Yes, that's correct. The model the team created to simulate a total collapse was covering a period of more than 2,000 years. And while the researchers said it is difficult to put realistic timing on an actual collapse, they are very confident it will eventually happen if climate conditions stay the same or worsen. I should note, too, that last year a similar study predicted a complete collapse of this same current system somewhere between 2025 and 2095.
Got it. Thanks again for joining me, Brian, and thanks for your report.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dan.
Podcast. My name is Andrew Smith, and I'm joined by Jill Robbins. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Andrew.
Our lesson is based on our video series, Let's Learn English. The series shows Anna Mateo in her work and life in Washington, D.C. Here's Anna introducing herself.
Hello, my name is Anna Mateo.
In today's lesson, we'll be teaching 7 expressions in English. You will also hear a bit of music from Anna and her special guest. And we're going to use an audio scrapbook to travel back in time to a previous podcast.
An audio scrapbook?
That's right, and we'll explain that expression in just a few minutes. But first, let's begin with Lesson 23 of Level 2 of the Let's Learn English series.
Anna learns that she'll be interviewing one of her favorite musicians, a woman named Emma G. An interview is a conversation where a reporter or journalist asks questions to a well-known person. Or it can be when one person asks another person a list of questions to find out if they are suitable or a good fit for a job.
Ms. Weaver tells Anna she'll be interviewing Emma G., and Anna gets very excited.
Hello.
Anna, this is Miss Weaver.
Ms. Weaver.
Tomorrow you'll be interviewing musician Emma G.
Emma G? I will be talking to Emma G?
Anna, are you there?
Now let's hear how the interview begins.
Hello, and welcome to the music today. Musician Emma G. will be joining us here. She is a wonderful songwriter and an amazing singer. And I love her. Let's give a warm welcome to Emma G. Hi, thank you for coming on the show. Of course.
It's great to be here.
Well, we can't wait to hear you sing. I listen to your music a lot, so I feel like I know you. Is that strange?
Anna, listening to music can be a very personal experience, so no, that's not strange.
Good, because I made something for you. A video scrapbook of our friendship. I took photos of you and added myself. I worked on it all weekend.
Well, that's strange. Is that even legal?
Emma G. thinks it's strange that Anna took photos of her and made a scrapbook. The scrapbook has photos of Emma G. and Anna together, as if they are close friends.
There's that word again, scrapbook. Let's explain. A scrapbook is a book with empty pages, but on the pages you can put photos or newspaper articles or other things to help you remember special experiences.
A few minutes ago, I said we were going to use an audio scrapbook. That means we'll revisit a previous podcast and listen to an explanation of the future continuous tense. You've already heard the future continuous several times today. Here are some examples. In today's lesson, we'll be teaching 7 expressions in English. Ms. Weaver tells Anna she'll be interviewing Emma G.
Hello, and welcome to The Music. Today, musician Emma G. will be joining us here.
And here's our explanation from a previous podcast, based on Lesson 45 of Level 1 of the series. She will have to wait, but our listeners can notice right now a special way we can talk about the future in English. It's called the future continuous tense. Listen again.
Marcia, we just left D.C. We'll be eating lunch in about 2 hours.
Instead of saying we're going to eat in 2 hours, Anna says,
we'll be eating lunch in about 2 hours.
That's because it takes some time to eat. For actions in the future that take some time to do, we can use the modal will plus the verb be plus the main verb with ing. For example, listen to this exchange.
What will you be doing tomorrow afternoon?
I'll be working from noon until 6 p.m.
We often use the future continuous when we specify or say the amount of time we expect the activity to take. If we don't know or care about the length of time, then we can just use the expression going to, like in this exchange.
Do you have any plans for the weekend?
I'm going to try to clean my room and maybe go to a movie.
Okay, we're back. It's handy to have a scrapbook, isn't it?
It is. Handy describes something that is useful or helpful that makes a job easier.
Now, let's get back to Anna's interview with Emma G. You can listen for the future continuous tense.
Now, Emma, let's talk about your schedule. Tell me, tell us, exactly where you will be and when. Exactly.
Sure. Well, in early June, I'll be performing at several venues across Austin, Texas.
That's my vacation week. I can meet you there. We can tour the city. We can have lunch.
Yeah, maybe. Then in mid-July, I'm going to be teaching at a music camp in Chicago.
I will be visiting my sister then. She only lives 6 hours from Chicago. I could drive over. We could hang out.
Yeah, maybe. You know, maybe now's a good time for some music.
That's a great idea. Now, let's hear a song from Emma G. Yay!
I wrote this song a couple of years ago. It's called Rarely.
It seems like Anna might be obsessed with Emma G. because Anna wants to visit her in 2 cities.
If you are obsessed with something or someone, it means you think about them all the time, or almost too much. The noun form of this word is obsession.
And I think Emma G. is becoming wary of Anna. Maybe that's why she chose to sing her song called Wary.
Maybe so. Wary is an adjective that means you are being very careful because of something that could cause problems or be dangerous. Wary is spelled W-A-R-Y.
For example, you should be wary of a hairy bear.
And you should be very wary of an angry bear.
I think you should be wary of bears in general.
I do too. Notice that we use the preposition of after the adjective wary.
Now, let's look at 2 more expressions we heard. The word venue and the phrasal verb hang out. Listen again.
Well, in early June, I'll be performing at several venues across Austin, Texas.
A venue is a place for an organized gathering of people, such as a concert, sporting event, or special meeting such as a convention. Most venues are indoors, but some are outdoors, such as a farmer's market or a stadium.
And the phrasal verb hang out is just an informal way of saying spend time together. It's very common in American English. But remember, it's informal, so we usually use that expression with friends and family.
Yeah, like Andrew, maybe we can hang out next weekend.
That's right, maybe we can.
So to review, today we looked at the expressions interview, handy, scrapbook, wary of, venue, obsessed by, obsession, and hang out.
Before we go, here's the end of Lesson 23 of Level 2. Anna gets to sing with Emma G. They sing a bit of a song that came out in the year 1983 by the group named The Police. The song is named Every Breath You Take, and you can hear the future continuous tense in that song.
The songwriter, named Sting, says it may sound romantic at the beginning, but it's really about an obsession. He wrote it after the breakup of his first marriage. Here's Anna and Emma singing the song.
And we hope you'll be watching Lesson 23 of Level 2 and all of the Let's Learn English series. And we'll be doing another lesson of the day soon.
Remember that you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for listening. I'm Jill Robbins.
And I'm Andrew Smith.
That's our program for today. Join us again tomorrow to keep learning English through stories from around the world. I'm Ashley Thompson.
And I'm Dan Novak.